Hi guys, welcome to another video. This is just going to be a van chat. Just going to have a chat on the way home. We've just finished shift. Surprisingly warm for October, so it was about 16-17 degrees last night, so surprisingly warm for this time of year. Just gone back, run the dog around my mum and dad's. Had to steer the dog away from a rabbit which a hawk had killed, eaten the eyes and left the body, so had to keep the dog away from that. But yeah, we just gone and had a bit of a run just to knacker him out a little bit. We're off tonight, so just good for him to go and stretch his legs after a shift. And yeah, I was just going to have a little bit of a chat about the butterfly effect. Well, I called it like the butterfly effect, or someone called it the ripple effect. So in terms of like my butterfly effect, so everything that's got me to where I am now has all been because of something else happening. And if you go back in time, if you take one of them things out, then that obviously affects where I am now. The same as like the ripple effect. So you throw the stone into the lake, and the stone creates the ripples. But if you take the stone away from that action, if you take the stone away, then ripples don't happen. So obviously you can go all the way back to sort of my trainer as such. So when my trainer was in the army back in the 70s, when he was looking for somewhere to be or something to be a part of, if he wasn't given the dog section as something to go and do, then maybe he doesn't become a security dog handler later in life, maybe doesn't become a trainer. Therefore, when I come to my training, etc., maybe I don't get the same training, or maybe someone doesn't give my dog a fair try at the job. Therefore I don't end up where I am now. And I thought it was quite an interesting thing just to think about, is that sort of my YouTube butterfly effect is that if my trainer never gave Coop the chance, which I think a lot of trainers probably wouldn't have at the start, if my trainer didn't give Coop at the start, there's no way I would be where I am now, and I wouldn't be doing what I am with my YouTube channel, because I said that the reason that I got into this job was to do it with Coop, or with my change of job, is that I wanted to be able to go with the dog to work. So if my trainer hadn't given Coop the chance, then there's no way I would have got rid of Coop, or there was no way I was going to buy a second dog. So when you think about the butterfly effect of that, is that there's no way that we would have had this YouTube community. I wouldn't have done the lives, I wouldn't have done sort of all the videos and things like that without Coop being able to do it. So I think it's interesting in that. But also taking it a little bit further, is that just because I've thrown the stone into the lake, I'm going to go on to the ripple effect now. So because I've thrown the stone in the lake and I've created the first ripple, it doesn't mean that you can't then create the second and the third and the fourth ripple. It's the stone passes on the momentum for everything else. And I think a good point for this is that this week I was speaking to someone who's been doing their NASDU, and they through watching my videos and listening to what we say, or like listening to the podcast episodes, etc., and things like that, they've taken on board and they've spoken to me outside of the videos on Messenger and things like that, and they've asked for some information, and I've given them ideas about a torch. I've given them ideas about vest. He's listened to the podcast about scenarios, and I think a good way of pointing this out is that he went for his NASDU, and one of the part of his NASDU was like a nighttime patrol. So he turns up for his nighttime patrol for his NASDU, gets his torch out, shines the torch, And they turned around and said, well, that's quite a professional torch. And he said, yeah, he says it's a good torch. And it was as if they wasn't expecting him to be at the standard that he was, because he was a new handler. But through listening to the podcast, through listening to advice, through talking to me, he started at a better point than the trainers were expecting, and he's starting at a better point than I am. So I think that's an interesting thing to think about, is that whatever you think about my channel, whatever you think about my dog, or whatever it is, the one good thing that we are doing is we are starting people off in the right way. And during his NASDO, there was they done a scenario, and guess what scenario it was? It was the death scenario. So the decoy, or they're out there to be found, and then when the handler and the dog find the trespasser, they pretend to be deaf. And through listening to the podcast, I think it was in the last podcast, me and Aaron talking about having the death scenario. I think I've mentioned it a few times about the death scenario, where you turn up and they pretend to be deaf and you have to get their attention a different way. So he goes in for his NASDO, and they're out trying to find the trespasser. They find the trespasser. He tries to get their attention. The person's not acknowledging them, not doing anything else. Automatically goes, I know this one, he's deaf. Starts waving around, gets their attention, pretends to do sign language. Therefore, they then sign back and they cooperate. Now, what he was signing was nothing to do with it. It was a bit of a blag, but he knew straight away what that scenario was going to be. And I didn't have that luxury when I first started. When I first done it, I done the annoying thing of spending ages trying to get their attention before waving my arm in frustration and getting their attention. But through listening to the podcast, listening to me in videos, etc., he knew straight away what that scenario was, and taking that onto a site, if someone was doing something similar to that, that would be he now has that avenue that he says, well, maybe they're deaf. So with the torch, and with him knowing the scenario straight away, is that whatever you think about what I'm doing, or whatever standard my dog is, or whatever it is, the one thing we are doing is we're starting people off in the right way. And like I say, it's kind of, I'll go with the ripple effect. So I've thrown the stone into the lake, I've created the first ripple with him. So when he was on his course, he spoke to me and he said, look, they was the people I was with, I told them about body cams and they wasn't sure, and I sort of gave them your kind of scenarios you said about how having that footage can keep you from maybe getting criminally charged for different things like that. And he said that he more or less talked them round to acknowledging that body cams would be good. So he started the second ripple, because maybe then that person decides to get a body camera, and then he's working with someone that doesn't have a body camera. He talks to them, and then all of a sudden, them ripple effects, now you're working into it being 4 or 5 people down the line, and maybe then they tell a couple of people, and before you know it, you've from me giving that information to one person, we're now maybe 10-15 people down the line that have got the benefit of that. And I think that's an important thing with dog handling, is that just because you watch my videos or whatever it is, that's not where the information stops. If you watch my videos and get something that you find that's important, or you find that's interesting, talk to other people about it, make other people aware, bring up these conversations. And I think going back to sort of the ripple effect of like the people that I started training with, is that being able to have them conversations is where I got a lot of good information and things like that. And knowledge only stops when people stop talking about it. So like I say, because you've watched my videos and you've found something interesting, or you found something that you feel is important, it doesn't mean that it then stops with you. It needs it needs to carry on to someone else, for it to go on to someone else, for it to go on to someone else. And the only way that we can kind of guarantee that the standard is going to be better is by pulling each other along and making each other better. So if you see something that you don't think is right and you have some knowledge off of it, then pass that knowledge on. Then hopefully then they will see someone doing something similar and they will then pass that knowledge on. So yeah, that was just my thoughts on like the butterfly effect, the ripple effect, and like I say, I think it was quite a good example with the handler that's been watching my videos, who turned up with a really good torch, who noticed the scenario straight away. And that is, like I say, that's just what my channel's about. I do put the dog stuff up probably to my detriment, because everyone has an opinion about my dog, etc., which is their opinion. It's entirely up to them and whatever. But I think that the good part about what my channel is about making the handler better. It's not about, my channel's never been about making the dog the best. My channel is about making sure that we're, as handlers, are making each other better and bringing each other along. So I'd just be interested in what you think about that butterfly effect or the ripple effect, whatever way you want to think of it. I've thrown the stone in there. It's obviously the ripples have started, but make sure that you're carrying them ripples on. So I'll be interested to see what you've got to say about that. Any comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below for loads more videos. And as for now, I'll see you again next week. Cheers for watching, guys. See you later.